What if Lucifer wasn't dangerous because he was the strongest, but because he was the closest to the God? Close enough to touch the edge of glory, close enough to learn the rhythms of heaven. And if that's true, then the most frightening part isn't that he fell. It's how many could have fallen with him. So here's the question we'll answer near the end. What was the one kind of power Lucifer had that even heaven treated like a contagion? Most people grow up with the same sentence lodged in their mind. Lucifer was the most powerful angel, the top, the apex, the untouchable masterpiece. It's a clean idea, simple, comforting even, because if evil had a leader, at least we can point to his strength and say, that's why it happened. But Scripture's shadows don't describe him like a brute. They describe him like something far more unsettling, not merely a warrior, but a symbol, a being associated with brilliance, an image like a morning star, radiant enough to make lesser lights feel ashamed, a figure spoken of with language reserved for rare craftsmanship, beauty, splendor, precision, intelligence, like heaven's art reached its peak and then turned inward. And for a moment, it sounds like raw power. But to understand this, we must go back to what power means in heaven. Because heaven doesn't run on force, it runs on order, and the higher you rise in that order, the less you need to shout. Before the fall, Lucifer isn't introduced as a villain. He's introduced like an office held by a being, a role, a place, a proximity. Ancient imagery hints he was a guardian figure, associated with sacred space, holiness, and the kind of access you don't stumble into. Not everyone stands near what is pure light. In a kingdom of perfect alignment, closeness is authority. Not because you're stronger than everyone else, but because you're trusted. And trust is the rarest currency in any realm. Lucifer's pre-fall story, what little we're shown, carries the chill of a security clearance. He wasn't merely in heaven, he was near the center. And that brings an emotional truth most people miss. The greatest dangers aren't always outside the system. They're the ones born inside it, with the keys already in their hand. This is where things turn dark. Imagine you are created brilliant, not learning brilliance, not earning it, just being it. Imagine beauty that doesn't fade, intelligence that doesn't tire, a presence that turns heads without trying. Now imagine you don't just have these gifts. You have a platform. Heaven is worship. Yes, but worship isn't music. It's alignment. It's the whole creation agreeing, silently and endlessly. God is God, and Lucifer, by tradition and implication, appears not merely as a participant but as someone woven into the system of honor itself, a being whose existence functioned like a spotlight reflecting glory. If you are built to reflect something, and you begin to love the reflection, you can mistake the light on your face for the light in your soul. This is where pride becomes supernatural. Not loud, not cartoonish, not a villain laugh. Pride arrives as a private conclusion. I deserve this. And once that thought forms, power changes shape. This is what most people miss. Lucifer's greatest threat wasn't raw strength. Because in biblical logic, angels are mighty, but they are still created. They are not infinite, not everywhere, not all-knowing, not unstoppable. Lucifer wasn't a rival god. He was something more realistic and more frightening. A high-ranking being with position, influence, and proximity to authority. And those three things can move crowds faster than force ever could. If Lucifer was terrifying, it's because he could do something violence can't do. He could reinterpret reality. He could take goodness and reframe it as limitation. Take obedience and reframe it as slavery. Take humility and reframe it as weakness. That is not the power of a sword. That is the power of persuasion. And persuasion is how you topple a perfect world without throwing a punch. And here's the part that changes everything. Think about the setting. Heaven. A realm where rebellion doesn't even make sense. Where there is no hunger, no scarcity, no fear of death. So what could Lucifer possibly offer? Not pleasure, not escape. He could only offer status, a new identity, a story where the throne isn't the source of meaning, but the obstacle. And that's why he was dangerous, because his power was psychological before it was military. He didn't need to invent evil as a weapon. He only needed to plant a question. What if you deserve more? And once that question is believed, loyalty becomes negotiable. This is the contagion, not strength, doubt. The kind of doubt that wears a crown and calls itself enlightenment. Now notice something chilling. The figure who stands against him in the shadows of Revelation isn't described with Lucifer's beauty, or Lucifer's brilliance, or Lucifer's proximity. It's Michael, and Michael's name, like a blade made of truth, means something like, who is like God? Michael's power is almost offensive in its simplicity, faithfulness. In a kingdom where everyone is strong, the rarest strength is the refusal to bend reality around yourself. Lucifer had access. Michael had allegiance. Lucifer had radiance. Michael had orientation, always facing the throne, never himself. And that contrast is the warning embedded in the story. Heaven didn't panic because Lucifer was unstoppable. Heaven panicked because Lucifer was convincing. So how powerful was Lucifer really? Let's measure it plainly. Lucifer's power looked like authority, a high station in a realm built on rank and order. Access, closeness to sacred space, near the center where trust is everything. Intelligence, enough insight to twist words without breaking them. Beauty, enough splendor to make pride feel natural. Influence, the ability to pull others into his orbit. But his power also had limits. He could not create life. He could not rewrite the nature of God. He could not overthrow the throne by force. So why did heaven treat him like a catastrophic threat? Because the war was never about muscle. It was about meaning. And meaning spreads faster than fire. So now we answer the question from the beginning. What was the one kind of power Lucifer had that heaven treated like a contagion? It wasn't the strength of his wings. It wasn't secret magic. It wasn't that he could overpower Michael. Lucifer had the power to make pride feel holy, to dress self-obsession in the language of justice, to make creatures stare at their own reflection and call it destiny, to take the highest gift, identity, and poison it with one quiet suggestion. You are the center. That is why heaven considered him dangerous. Because if a being that close to glory could believe that lie, then any mind could. Even yours, even mine. Lucifer's true power was not domination. It was seduction. The kind that doesn't drag you into darkness. It convinces you that darkness is light. So let me leave you with a question that doesn't belong only to ancient heaven. Where in your life has pride learned to speak in a calm voice? Where has it stopped sounding like arrogance and started sounding like identity, like ambition, like I deserve more? Because the most haunting part of Lucifer's story isn't that a great being fell. It's that the fall began with a thought so small it could fit inside a whisper and still crack the sky.